People have been saying for a while now that it was likely that there would be an attempt on Donald Trump's life. You know the kind of people that have been saying it, and you know the type of media that have been discussing the possibility. Perhaps in the immediate aftermath, what we can say is that there's a media environment of hysteria and hatred generated, curiously, by the rational neoliberal mainstream media, inflating the threat of Trump, demonizing the character of Trump, constantly associating Trump with hatred, escalating his possible and now yet more likely election with a kind of fascistic, retro 20th century, militaristic, Hitler-esque, apocalyptic nightmare. Well, it would seem that either this wall-to-wall, endless sphere of media condemnation has provoked or inspired a lone gunman to make this attack, or something more sinister has happened. Perhaps you will have noted, as I've done, that CNN were very quick to describe the event as an interruption. Donald Trump's speech is interrupted. It was interrupted by someone trying to kill him. Can you imagine that CNN, if this were Joe Biden, would report on the event as, oh, it looks like Joe Biden's speech was interrupted by bullets being fired at him? Over the coming days and weeks, I suppose we'll see more division and more condemnation. We'll see people perhaps suggesting that the event was a hoax or a false flag, or that it was planned on one side, and it's likely that it will create yet more invective, more vituperative and condemnatory rhetoric. And I wonder if there will be a point on the eve of the Republican National Convention, which I'm actually going to, where conciliation, an approach of conciliation and ease and good faith and good spirit and a movement towards healing might happen. In the immediate adrenalized aftermath, Donald Trump, presumably terrified, looked pretty robust and pumped as he raised his fist defiantly. But what does this revelation tell us about America so soon after the debates, where we've seen the liberal legacy media reframe what many of us have long known as some kind of revelation when it comes to the senescence of Joe Biden? How will this new media artifact be purposed? The truth of it is that for the first time since since Reagan was shot at in office, or Kennedy was murdered in office, or Lincoln was murdered in office, there is been an attempt on the life of in this case, former president. And what can we take from it before we know whether or not it was one shooter or multiple shooters, what the potential connections of that shooter are? What we can say is it was likely that something like this would happen, with all of the disdain, condemnation, hatred, hysteria around Donald Trump, the continual attempts to frame him as something beyond a populist figure with a set of values that certainly seem to chime with many Americans who, every time he is condemned, feel that they are being condemned along with him. And one thing I think we can say with some certainty is that Donald Trump is likely to be voted president in November this year, unless something more sinister happens to him or to America as a whole. And in this extraordinary, hazy, fluxy world of continual uncertainty, who among us would feel entirely confident that both of those scenarios are not only impossible, but to some degree even likely?